We have a variety of news to discuss today, including the NHL approving the proposed changes to the draft lottery. We have news on players being fined. We have waiver news. And we have another situation that took place between Ottawa and Calgary last night I want to take a quick look at as well. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. First up, I want to take a look at the NHL Draft Lottery changes. We had reported this back a couple of weeks ago, some changes that were being recommended to be made, and the NHL Board of Governors has finally had time to discuss and complete their vote. And according to Pierre LeBrun of TSN and The Athletic, those changes have been passed. So those changes will take effect this year in 2021. As of the recording of this video, the NHL has not put out an official statement or release indicating that this indeed has been the case. But of course, LeBrun's reporting is always bang on, so no doubt about it that it's actually taking place. But we'll get confirmation of this here in due time. By the time this video makes it to YouTube, it very well could be out. I don't know when to expect that, but I would assume here sometime today or tomorrow at the latest. So if you don't remember, the changes that were being proposed on the NHL Draft Lottery changes were as follows. You can only have 2 lottery wins over a 5-year span, and that's going to kick in next year so that everybody's starting with a fresh, clean slate. So you can't win the lottery more than twice in 5 years. If you happen to win 2 years in a row, then for the next 3 years, you will not be eligible. So of course that is to kind of discourage teams from intentionally tanking, but at the same time, as well, you have to factor in that if you're getting a lot of high lottery picks, even if it's not a case of tanking, that you should be getting better a little bit year after year and not continuously finishing at the bottom of the standings in theory here. But obviously that's one of the big ones. Another one was that you can only move up 10 spots. So obviously before, the way it was, you had 3 lottery spots amongst all the non-playoff teams. So clearly teams could be finishing barely out of the playoffs and move up into the top 3. And there were certainly a lot of teams that were not fond of that. We've seen some teams have incredible good luck here the last couple of years, especially look at the New York Rangers for a prime example, getting 1 overall last year and 2nd overall the year before that. So they've had incredible luck here on their side, considering that they were not at the absolute bottom of the NHL standing. So clearly that's something that we're going to see. And of course, we only have 2 spots now in the lottery instead of 3. So you can only move up a maximum of 10, and therefore only 2 spots available. So if you're the dead last in the NHL, now you can only drop to, worst case scenario, 3rd overall instead of 4th, because obviously with 3 spots going in the lottery, we've seen that happen just this past year with the Detroit Red Wings being the last place team by a fair margin and not having any good luck in the lottery and dropping to 4th overall, which I know GM Steve Yzerman was not overly thrilled about, and he was one of the big influencers here to make some change. I know he talked about it early on, and enough other GMs got on board to push the agenda and the topic forward to get these changes made. So obviously some of those changes will be effective for 2021, where the remainder is 2022. So obviously the 2 spots and moving up to 10 kicks in right away. The 2 wins in 5 years starts next year. So that's all good to go, and the NHL should be announcing that here shortly. As I mentioned, we also have some news on the NHL waiver wire. The New York Islanders have placed longtime veteran forward Leo Komarov on waivers. This is not the first time he's been on waivers this season. He cleared in the past. I would suspect he more than likely clears again, but of course players, when they do go on waivers, that gives them roster flexibility, but within a 30-day span, or if they play 10 NHL games, require waivers again to be moved. So obviously that's why you're seeing veteran players going through the waiver wire more than one time this year. Obviously, it depends on the team's roster and their needs, but clearly some of the younger players have been really stepping up with the Islanders and kind of taking on bigger roles, which is kind of certainly reduced Komarov's role. I know it was reported earlier that the Islanders were trying to trade his contract, but I obviously have not had any luck on that, and we'll see if he's claimed. But again, as I mentioned before, it's probably pretty doubtful given the contract term and the money he has left owing on that deal. Now, we also have some fines to talk about here today. The San Jose Sharks have been hit here with a team fine if this conduct continues. It's a conditional fine of $25,000 for an incident that took place during warm-ups against the Los Angeles Kings. Curtis Gabriel, of course, has been fond of, finding some fight partners, I guess we could say, recently. We've seen Gabriel doing a lot of antics in recent games as well during warm-ups, and it's almost like they're trying to stage some fights or something, or at least trying to, set the tone even before the game ever starts to make sure a fight takes place. But he cross-checked McDermott in warm-ups, and he was fined $3,000, which is pretty light for an NHL player, but it is the maximum allowable under the CBA. And head coach Bob Bugner also gets a $5,000 fine as well. And so it's obviously something that the NHL does not want to see. Like I said, the team fine is not something they have to pay right away. It's $25,000, but it's only in the next year if they're disciplined again for the same sort of thing. So I guess if anything else happens during the Sharks warm-ups in that time frame, then the fine will apply. So we will see, but certainly not something they want to see going on here. Now, the other thing I want to talk about today as well was the situation that happened last night between the Ottawa Senators and the Calgary Flames. Now, it's nothing that the NHL is really looking into. There won't be any fines. There won't be any penalties, anything like that. It's just a situation, in my opinion, of really poor sportsmanship. And I've seen this happen on a variety of occasions over the last number of years, and it's just something I personally find frustrating. But the Ottawa Senators, as we know, have gone through a lot of goaltending issues this year because of injuries. I mean, they have starter Matt Murray out week to week. They had Joey Decord, who was between the backup role, actually squad, go in, had a couple of remarkable starts, was doing really well, but he got hurt. They already had Marcus Hogberg, who started the season as the backup. He had been out longer term and is not back yet. He's still likely out another week or two. So they had youngster Philip Gustafsson, who they picked up from the Pittsburgh Penguins a couple years back when they traded Derek Brassard at the NHL trade deadline. Actually, that trade's worked out quite well for them as well, in case you didn't know. They got the young goaltender Gustafsson for Brassard, as well as a first-round pick, and that first-round pick ended up turning out to be Jacob Bernard-Docker, who's at UND right now and should be signing with the Senators and turning pro. Looks like a real solid defenseman for them. So a side note there, but that was a great trade for the Sens. But essentially, Gustafsson gets his first career NHL start last night and had a real solid game. The Ottawa Senators went on to beat Calgary 2-1. So for Gustafsson in his first game, allow one goal and pick up the win. Obviously, a huge occasion, a milestone victory for him. At the end of the game, Flames defenseman Rasmus Andersson tried to get off the ice with the puck. The referee was trying to track him down, and the Sens players were going after him as well to try to get that puck for Gustafsson. He eventually dropped it on the ice and let it go. But then Matthew Tkachuk come along and then shot it down the ice away from the players. Just, an immature, kind of dumb, classless move, in my opinion. I don't understand why we see players try to do things like that and take pucks from players when there's a milestone. It's not the first time it's happened. I'm not talking about it just because it's the Senators either. Like, I don't really care what team it is. It's just something that I find very immature and annoying. Like I said, it's not something the NHL is going to impose any penalties or fines on. I just think it's so petty and so stupid. I mean, it's just a really bad look, in my opinion, for Rasmus Andersson. In Matthew Tkachuk's case, he's already got a bit of a rep for, some stuff that he's done. What he did here is not as bad. He shot the puck away. His brother Brady was not far from there. He's probably trying to take a dig at his brother. I really don't know. What he did wasn't as bad as Andersson in this case. But it's just so immature. Like, when you know that there's players on the ice that have hit a major milestone, like, don't do that. Knock that off. I mean, if it were you and you hit a big milestone and you wanted the puck, you wouldn't appreciate it if it were done to you either. Just sometimes you see these players just, I don't know, it just drives me nuts and insane, and I just hate how they do those things. So, like I said, not a good look for him. Obviously, the Flames are struggling right now. And Gustafsson had a great game, but there's no need of that. So I hate to see that around the NHL, but I'm sure it won't be the last time we see of a situation like that. That is all your news for now. We will be back later with another video, so stay tuned for that. Let me know your thoughts on these news items down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.